Hi everyone. So I'm going to continue by cutting in with a little bit of doom and gloom into everybody's otherwise cheery evening, but I feel okay about it because I'm being followed by somebody who studies economics, so by the time we get to him, the doom and gloom should probably be filling the room, and it's such an appropriate thing just before Christmas. What I want to do is to talk you through where Fabians has been this year and a very, very short amount about where we think we're going next year. So just in keeping with the theme that Tim Colbach will be talking about tonight, I'm thinking about political alterations and social change in Australia today, given the developing forces and trends that have the potential to rapidly shift power and potentially, I think, create either state autocracies or oligarchies of commercial interests, or worse, some kind of united front of the two. These are the sorts of developments that could easily lead to ordinary people to either being powerless participants in a society they don't particularly like, or collateral damage that is just sort of discarded, I suppose, to one side. The sorts of trends that I'm thinking about that we've been addressing over the last, or partly over the last year, but which we intend to address as well, the technological change and artificial intelligence, environmental degradation and climate change, and geopolitical shifts of a magnitude that we haven't seen in a lifetime. They all contribute to our sense that the world in general, including Australia, is heading in a direction that politics, policy development and regulation are struggling to keep up with. This is especially as many of these changes pose real threats to equality and democracy. There are, however, new opportunities in some of these trends to find technologies, social movements and political openings that will boost both equality and democracy. The question is where to look and how to reframe viewpoints so that these opportunities gain the upper hand over the threats. Fabians plays a part in keeping the momentum going to assure the presence of a democratic and egalitarian worldview and ideas that will help to prevent the worst effects of these trends and build some political pressure towards countervailing action. This year, we've done so by bringing together increasing audiences to hear speakers on topics that have been on the horizon, I think, in a number of cases, of many people's consciousness, but which have the capacity to profoundly alter the society that we live in. We began the year in February by contributing to the state ALP policy review process. Max Dumay, Max over there, just wave, stand up. Okay. Max ran a series of 3 events which were very popular and people had a lot of fun, which were addressing the 3 key planks of the state ALP policy platform: skills and knowledge, health and wellbeing, and jobs and economy. Most people, I think, who came along, as well as having fun, got a pretty good brain workout. And Max very kindly then took the opinions and views of participants and wrote it all up into 3 submissions and sent it to the Victorian ALP Policy Committee under the Fabians banner. Thank you very much, Max, for helping out at the beginning of the year. That was terrific. Then we moved on to our autumn series of 3 events on the question, is neoliberalism destroying social democracy? Here we were digging about in discovering what makes neoliberalism hang together as an ideology and what we can do about that. What you'll be seeing if you come back and look at our autumn series was Anna Yateman of the Whitlam Institute and Tim Lyons, who's a research fellow at Per Capita and consultant with Revelia Strategy on that same question, is neoliberalism destroying social democracy? And then we had Dr. Ben Wellings of Monash University and Peter Lewis of Essential Media, the people who run the Essential poll, on what do people really want from government. And lastly, we had Hutch Hussain, the Victorian ALP Party President, and John Quiggin of University of Queensland, who I'm sure you're all familiar with and who proved to be a very popular draw card. And they were talking about what would an alternative system, a new deal, look like. And that was a particularly great event, that one, if anybody wants to look back over it. Then in July, in a combined effort, which is largely down to this person in front of me, Tim Sonreich, we had Australian Fabians together, all of the branches, promoted the essay of Labor Party politicians Terry Butler and Andrew Giles on tax settings and inequality. This became a Fabians pamphlet which was widely distributed. At the Victorian branch, we attracted a record audience for that of nearly 80 people came along to that. And again, that can also be found on video if you're interested in a reprise. So thank you very much, Tim, for a huge amount of work pulling that together. It was done in an incredibly short period of time, very, very fast with a lot of hard work. Then we moved on to the Spring Series, and the Spring Series was about a topic which I think is getting more and more of a coming to consciousness, I guess, of people as an issue to, I guess, be concerned about, but start to get ahead of, if at all possible, and that is the issue of the digitisation of democracy. We explored that from quite a number of aspects. It's the idea of that was to look at the impact that technological change and artificial intelligence may have in altering representation, voting and other interactions that citizens have with government. So this series started off with Janet McCalman, who's a member of our executive but unfortunately can't be here tonight, who was talking about how useful government data can be for really impactful research, particularly in the health area. She's actually undertaking some of that research at present, looking at a history of disease over 3 generations. And she can only do it using the kind of data that's now accessible. The second person was Chris Coleman, who's a Melbourne University expert on privacy and government and privacy. And I think he scared us all by saying that no data is anonymisable. All data can be crossed with other data, and even if you don't find out the name of the person, you can work out so much about them that you might as well know their name. So after being frantically scared by that, the second event featured Stilgarian. He and Vanessa Teague, who's also from Melbourne University and who is an expert on electronic voting, which should be followed by ... Her advice is don't do it. They were talking about the digital manipulation of democracy. So when you're talking about sort of doom and gloom, I think after that one we were well and truly quite nervous. And a third event had 3 speakers: Marta Poblet, who's an expert on using crowdsourcing for government and democratic decision making; Adam Jacoby, who's the founder and he calls himself the chief steward of the electronic platform MyVote, which some of you may have heard of; and Simon Longstaff, who's a philosopher and the executive director of the Ethics Centre. And he certainly features a lot talking to business about ethics. And they were discussing how can digitisation benefit democracy and equality. So that was our year, and all up, I added up, sat there yesterday adding all of this up, and we had Victorian Fabians organised 11 events, including this one, with a total of 19 speakers, and we've attracted audience attendances of generally between 40 and 60 plus for each event. So I'm pretty proud of that, and I'm pretty proud of our executive for helping so much in pulling something like that together. So I'm going to go to some more specific thank yous now. We've done quite well with our social media as well. We started broadcasting events by live stream on Facebook midway through our autumn series, and it had a pretty rocky start because we couldn't get the sound to work, and we got a few complaints to start off with, and we eventually mastered sound on Facebook, and that actually turned out to be terrific, because what happened was that we ended up with the concurrent live stream audience doubling the face-to-face audience, which was absolutely fabulous. And that happened over, I think, 3 or 4 events. We had an online audience that at the same time doubled the audience that was in the room. And then, of course, the nice thing about live streams is that they go on getting extra views and clicks and so forth. There's Facebook likes to offer a whole heap of different kinds of statistics, but the genuine one is the people who've actually sat there and viewed the thing the whole way through. And I think our top one was 500 complete views for some of our events. So it's really got an opportunity for expanding the size of our reach. So I'm really happy about that. And the people we have to thank for that are Chris. Where's Chris? Chris Blake? There's Chris. Chris is our star of Facebook. Chris has, we started, I think, in May of this year with 800 followers for the Facebook group. This is just Victorian branch, and it now stands, I looked at it yesterday, and I think it's 1,688. So, and that's down to him working his butt off, which is fantastic. And the Twitter account was equally fabulous. Where's Matt? Matt? Over there? By July, the Twitter account had reached just over 1,000 followers. And again, I looked at it yesterday, and it had 2,131 followers and 12,529 likes. So, and I'm not entirely sure how Matt actually keeps his day job, because he spends so much time working on Twitter. So, yeah, well done, Matt. Thank you very much. And our email newsletters, which are probably the most important part of our communications in getting you here, and they're sent out by Joy Metham. Joy over in the corner there. Joy is a quiet person, but she does a fantastic job with communication. And she also records all our minutes for us, which is just wonderful. Our membership has also grown. In May, we had 226 members just in Victoria, which grew to 310 by October. We averaged around about 10 new members for every event, except for a rather astounding 53 new members at the Andrew Giles and Terry Butler event. And overall, Australian Fabians membership stands at 743, I think, in October, so it's probably gone up a bit since then. Which is more than that also receive our emails. So that's another statistic that I'm pretty proud of. The other people who need to be thanked are Philip Money, who isn't here tonight, Megan Pode and Maggie Sefton, because they're all there in the background making this stuff happen. They are constantly with us, they're constantly checking in. They're very committed, dedicated people, and I thank them in particular. Everyone on the executive deserves recognition for helping out at events, but Claire Wilkinson deserves a special mention for the work she put into this event tonight, despite the fact that she's working on a PhD, and in fact, she's not here tonight because she has her PhD completion seminar tomorrow morning. So I think there's a fair bit of dedication that went in there as well. Alison McClelland, who is here, Alison over there, and Janet McCalman, who couldn't be here tonight, have also given excellent help with shaping the flavour of events and suggesting the names of people that we could contact, and generally really helping out in terms of the events. They've also both been speakers at one each of the events, and that's been fantastically helpful. And we've got some newbies, David Redfern, wherever he is, over there, and Tristan, where's Tristan? Over the back there, and Megan Nicholas, is Megan here tonight? No, okay. Anyway, they're part of the general executive. They haven't yet developed a specific role, but I've got great hopes for them. I have to give a very special thank you to Jack Halliday, who's the person who remembers the bits that everybody else doesn't, who prods people and cajoles extremely politely. Yeah, when you get prodded regularly by Jack, but it's always incredibly polite. And he fills in gaps and he rings me up at all hours of the day to remind me about things I haven't done yet. And he's got a fabulous corporate memory and I don't know where we'd be without him. So Jack's a very special person for Fabians. So thank you very much, Jack. So next year, we haven't sat down and had our planning session yet for next year, but we do have some things which we know are on the horizon. We don't know about the events, that is. We have been working on a project which is to connect other progressive groups together. So the first purpose of the calendar is not to trip each other up, but the second purpose of the calendar, and it will be accompanied by a website, is to ensure that people like you have somewhere to go where when you're looking for progressive events. We'll build the number of organisations slowly over time, but when you're looking for progressive events, when you want to know what's happening, I'm hoping that this will build up to be something that is really a kind of project with a bit of a future. And the other thing is, this is for all of you in this room who are secret writers, have something in the desk drawer or something that you've been thinking about of political or social import. We are working on getting a Victorian branch publications group going, and we hope that you'll consider getting involved in that. We'd like to make writing and discussing a bigger part of the Fabians membership experience. So any ideas that you have for involvement are absolutely welcome. You can email us, you can come and talk to me, you can come and talk to any of the executive. But if you've got any great ideas about either the publications idea or any other way of involvement that you can see for yourselves in Fabian's future, come and let us know about it. We're about to have not one but 2 planning days coming up, so we've got plenty of time to discuss it. So before you all starve to death between the canapes and the main course, I'm going to let you get on with the main course. So thank you very much.